In today's video, I'm going to show you the new effects and updates that I've added to the CRT effects kit. If you're new around here, my name is Jack and I make one free graphic design resource every single month at studioAAA.com. And for my May resource, I put out this video tutorial that you might have seen by far my most popular video. And after I put this out on Twitter and YouTube, I've worked on the effects more and I've found better ways to do things. So I've added the better methods to the pack now. But not only that, I also heard from people who made shaders, who made like 3D versions of the effect, people who built the effect using like JavaScript and Python, or people who've built it in other softwares and stuff. So yeah, I just first of all, I just wanted to say that anything that I cover for this effect now, the CRT modulation effect, because of not only the amount of support I've had after covering that effect, but also how other people have taken it and put it into a shader and then made their shader free, or they've taken it and put it into Cinema 4D and then showed people how to do that. Every single feature or edit or tweak or whatever that I ever create for this effect that I show on screen in Photoshop, I will make completely for free. Ordinarily, my free downloads only last 1 month, so you might see that in a lot of places it'll say like free for a limited time, but I'm also going to leave this effect for free on the site for the rest of the year. It might do longer than the rest of the year, but it will at least be free until the end of 2024. Probably longer than that, but it depends. I don't know, maybe I'll get hit by a bus. But yeah, I'm going to show you the new effects for both the full version of the CRT effects kit and the free version that I've just been talking about. And to get straight into it, if you would like to get a hold of the effects I'm going to show today, you can come to studioAAA.com/CRT and it will redirect you straight to this page where you can download the effects. It might look a little bit different when you get there because I'm going to be updating things after I've recorded this video, but yeah, you'll be able to get the free effects there. So download that. You're going to get an ATN file. I've already got Photoshop open here, as you can see. To install an ATN file, all you need to do is double click on the ATN file with Photoshop open, or you can come to Window, make sure Actions is ticked. Then when you get this little panel pop up for Actions, click on the 3 lines at the top right, go to Load Actions and just navigate to wherever it is you saved the ATN file. Obviously, I've already got mine installed because I've created them, been working on them today. The free version of the pack, you are getting the CRT bend effect. So that is the effect I'm going to cover first. So now, rather than being split into 4 steps, the effect all happens in one action, and then you have these control actions that you can use. As you can see, I've got a couple of stock photos here that I'm just going to demo on today. First one is this like statue head and shoulder bust thing of I don't know who, some guy, some Greek or Roman guy probably. This is just a stock photo from Unsplash. I'm gonna mess with this one first. Now the actual process hasn't changed here, it's just how the action works has changed. So if you would like to learn how to create this effect without the action, in the previous video I do show how to create the effect from scratch. So if you click on the advanced CRT bend create effect action with your image selected, make sure you're using it on a smart object and just click play, you'll get some like prompts to help you along. This one is just saying that you'll see when I do this in the recording, there are some error messages that pop up that say set command failed and the make command failed. Those are just there, and I'll talk more about it, but those are there to prevent errors. So yeah, don't worry about those. You can read the instructions if you want, but I don't need that. So as I said, you will sometimes get error messages. This set command is just making sure if you have a background layer, we are not applying these effects to a background layer. So yeah, because I didn't have mine set as a background layer, you can just press continue. That's just there to prevent an error. At this point, it's going to create your lines, assets, and a new step that has been added to the action is a threshold control at this stage. So there was an error with the previous action where sometimes if you were on a small document size, the lines would not appear like this. And that's just because the threshold was being set wrong. So at this point, you can choose how thick the lines are. The thickness of the lines is editable later. So for me, I'm just going to go 147 for my threshold, and I'm just going to remember that number by highlighting it and copying it. Press OK. It's going to ask me again, so I'll just paste my 147 in and press OK. I'm going to prompt you with another threshold level. So at this point, you are using this threshold threshold to control which areas of the image will be affected by the CRT modulation effect. So areas that appear in white, the effect will be visible. The areas that are in black, the effect will not be visible. Now, while it might just seem like, yeah, this is great, I'll just do this because the effect is showing on the guy's face and his chest and shoulders, you might just think that's fine. In reality, you will get the most out of this effect if you do something kind of like this. So you actually want, like, from this, you don't want something flat, you want something detailed. So find a spot where, obviously this is too much, but if you find a spot in your image where there's like lots of detail in the threshold, you'll get better results. So try and avoid flat like this and sort of find something around here. So I'm going to go 200, 205 for mine, and then press OK. Again, it's just using this set command to make sure that you're not doing anything on the background layer. At this point, it's going to prompt you to add a Gaussian blur to create a displacement map in a second. Now, if you go all the way with the radius, you are going to have very, very basic and simple lines. For me, for this one, I want to have some more complex lines because of like the detail in the hair, shadows under the nose, under the eyes. Sort of, if you go down here on the image, you'll see this area of the chest has some like the stones withered away. So yeah, I don't want to lose any of that. So I'm going to go for like 3.6, so something really, really simple. It's then going to prompt you to save a PSD file. Just save it somewhere that you can remember, because you're going to need to open this PSD file in a minute. I usually just name it somewhere as disp and then just replace that when I'm working with the effect on a new image. Then at this point, it's now going to prompt you to open the PSD file you saved a second ago. So leave these displacement settings the same. Once you have run the effect a couple of times, you can up this scale value, but I wouldn't change any of these other properties. For now, I'm just going to leave it at 100 and press OK. Select my displacement map. Same again, select my displacement map, and then it'll apply the glow. And you get this message at the end that says you can use the advanced CRT controls to customize the CRT effects easily and quickly. So as you can see, like, it's only one layer now. It's not outputting tons of layers, and everything is nested inside this smart object now. If you know what you're doing in Photoshop, obviously you can click through these and start messing with the effect independently on your own. If you're not confident, or if you just want to do it quicker and easier, I've created all these advanced controls here to do all the work for you. So for example, we've got vertical lines here. If I want to switch that to horizontal, obviously I can click in and rearrange the layers and stuff, but I can just run this advanced control, set lines to horizontal with the CRT bend effect selected, click play. It's going to give you a little warning message, because if you've renamed any of the layers inside this, or if you've renamed this layer, Photoshop, it doesn't know what it's looking for anymore. So as long as you've not made any changes, you can run these advanced controls and ignore this error message. So just press continue. And then it went in and it changed the lines to horizontal. If I want to change them back to vertical, there's one below it that says set lines to vertical. So I can just run that, press continue. And as you can see, it's just going to go through and do the change for me. At this point on the chest, you can see the lines are quite boring. So if I wanted to get some more interesting lines, created this action that says advanced control, crispy lines. I couldn't really come up with another word for it, but crispy sounded cool. So yeah, select your CRT bend layer, click on crispy lines and click on play. It'll pull you through to controlling a threshold here. What you're essentially doing here is, if you go for something flat, the lines won't be crispy. So get like a nice noisy sort of threshold, like something around here, just to sort of like a sweet point, like around here. If you go too flat, the effect won't work, and if it's too empty, then you'll just lose, the image won't be visible anymore. So I'm gonna go again around 200, 214, 215, and press OK. And then you'll see now the lines just have they just appear more detailed, even though they're not. All we've done is add noise to the lines now. Yeah, that's what that action does. If you wanted to change to like just a dot render, so instead of having lines, your character or your image or whatever it is you've applied the effect to will just be showing up in dots, you can run the advanced control, switch to dot render, press continue on the warning message, and then it will spit out this sort of dot rendered version of the guy. Now, what I would like to do for this one is just adjust the threshold so that you can see the face a little bit more. So all I need to do for that is run the advanced control, edit mask / threshold, and it'll bring me to this threshold adjustment, and I can just use this to make sure there is more white on the face. So if I go at like 202, you can see there's much more white on the face here now. Press OK, it'll just take a second, and then it'll move move you back over to your original, and you can see now the threshold's been changed and it's more bright. Yeah, you can really you can run these actions as much as you want, and provided I've tested them all correctly, which I'm pretty sure I have, you won't actually need to do any of the editing yourself. I'm not going to show them all because I'm testing them all, and I've sent them, I've sent them all to a couple of people who've been using the pack and haven't had anything break just yet. So you can use these advanced controls. The only rule is you need to make sure you're using it on the CRT bend effects layer. There might be some more advanced controls that are there by the time this gets out, but everything will come with instructions and everything will have been tested. So if you get any error messages, send me an email with your order number or the version number, and I will get to fixing it and adding an update to the pack straight away. But yeah, that about covers the free effects. I'm still leaving in the old way of doing it because I'm aware some people might prefer that. And as I said before, the effect itself has not changed. So if you double click into this CRT bend effect layer, you can still go and change everything manually, to be however you want it to be. So hue and saturation layer is still there that the old effect created. It's just in the smart object. The curves layer is still there. All the glows are still there. You can double click again in another time and your horizontal lines are still there. Vertical lines are still there. Nothing about the effect and the way it's built has changed. It's just the new controls and the easier way of doing it that I have sort of added into the effect. So as well as updating the free actions, I've also updated the full pack. I've already done a video on the chromatic glow effects, the CRT glow video. Nothing's changed with the CRT glow. So I'm not going to cover these. These are really simple and just are used for splitting your RGB channels and adding a glow that way, similar to how a CRT television would have chromatic aberrations in the glow. Now previously this was broken down into more than one action, and there was some confusion about what was actually meant by phosphor style dot map. So just to explain, in a CRT television you have these little dots called phosphors. Phosphor is a substance that emits visible light when it is exposed to certain forms of radiation. In a CRT TV, the phosphors are arranged into little arrays of red, green and blue. So the phosphor style dot map is essentially aiming to render your image in red, green and blue dots. The way this is going to work now in the update though is that your dot map will be generated by this create effect action, and then you can edit it using these additional actions here. I'm just going to select my image, and with the phosphor style dot map action selected, I'm going to press play. Of course, you're going to get these little guided pop-up messages. I don't need those. So first little adjustment you're going to get is this levels. This is just to add a nice high contrast levels adjustment. So the default's probably fine, but you can mess with it and experiment once you're experienced with this effect. I'm going to leave mine at the default, and then in the next window you are going to be asked to create a high contrast black and white effect. You can usually just get that by turning a bunch of these colors all the way down and pressing OK. So I'm going to go and generate this mask similar to the mask we use for the CRT bending effect. So for this threshold, just make sure the white sections of the image are where you are happy for the dots to appear. The dots will, for this one, go slightly outside of it, but yeah, it's like a rough mask template for where the dots are going to be appearing in your final image. I'm just going to go all the way to the right because I want mine to be nice and detailed, and then press OK. Just going to generate the red, green and blue dots, which takes a couple of seconds. When it starts flashing, that's what it's doing. The last little prompt you'll get is just telling you that if it asks you to save any documents, just press no. The reason for that is that we're going to be exiting quite a lot of smart objects. The smart objects are already saved inside the PSD file. So at this point, if I press yes, the full action will just break. So make sure you press no. And this is your output. So it's going to explain in this message how to control the output. It's quite dim. As you can see, what happens sometimes, depending on the layer structure, is this curves optional layer ends up being below the RGB. So yeah, just make sure you put that curves above it if it does sort of come in below it. That's just because I've got lots of layers here and lots of images. If you ran that on its own, it'd populate correctly. But yeah, you've got this curves layer to brighten things up. You've got some glow and optional highlight glow, which is always a little bit much if you don't mess with the opacity. You've then got red control, green control and blue control. So you can pull the red curves layer. So if I pull all the red out of the image, it'll be blue and green. Turn the red up, it'll start to tint red. So you can use these curves layers if you want to like control the tone of the image and like where each of the dots are brightest. You can completely disable the chromatic aberration altogether. So look, if you zoom in, there's a chromatic aberration effect that's making up the image. If you want to just disable that altogether, you can just turn this on and then they'll all turn green, all the little dots. If you wanted to change the chromatic aberration and the pattern of the image, you can just double click on the RGB layer and you'll see here you've got multiple folders. So it'll default to the chromatic aberration option 1. If you just hide this and change to option 2, use Control and S to save and then exit, you'll see that option 2 is much more warped and distorted, and it's less blurry, so the red, green and blue dots are just warping around rather than being blurred. You can double click in again and change from option 2 to option 3, which is going to apply this like horizontal blur to the red and green, just like a template I set up just to show you like kind of what you can do with it. Control S to save, back over to your original, and you'll see the effect sort of populating automatically. And then again, if you double click back in the third time and hide option 3, you've got a blank template. So for this one, if you start adding effects to the red, green and blue layers, so for example red, if I went filter, distort, wave, and I'm just going to do something really exaggerated so you can see what I mean, and it will only apply the effect to the red dots. Then if I just drag the green dots out of alignment, use Control S to save, exit and come back, you'll see that it syncs up. You can then apply your usual controls with the curves if you want, or you can disable the aberration or whatever you want. So this action preserves everything, so everything's editable. Rather than having the action, before this was split into multiple actions, the way I've done it now means that you just run the action once and it generates all the controls that you might need to edit the effect, and any shortcuts that you want are going to be below the dot map action. So for example, if I want to change the dot size, you can run this dot resize custom action. So if I click play with the RGB, double click to edit layer selected, it'll bring you to this filter gallery window. So let's say I wanted bigger dots. I'm going to go for size 10 for dots. And then I can adjust the threshold level again. Bigger dots means less dots. So if I wanted, so I've just changed my dot size to 10 there. But if I don't actually want the size of the dots to change and I just wanted less dots, you can use the threshold here to sort of reduce the density of the dots. So if I go here, it's like a really simple image, press OK, you can now see back at my original, the density has changed. I've also included a couple of presets for the red, green and blue control. So for example, if I run the RGB rebalance preset 1, it is going to mess with these and create like a nice little purple glow. If I run preset 2, I'll do something a little bit crazier. These are all going to depend on like what kind of image you've put in. If I want to undo that, I can go back to preset 1 by just running that action again. If you want to run this blurry red green effect, I can just click that, click on run, and it's gone in and changed some stuff around so that you're only really getting the red and green dots now. Similar to the other, there's going to be probably more effects here when you see them, but they're all going to work this way. So you are essentially creating the effect with the main action and then using these extra actions to control the effect, or if you feel like you know what you're doing, you're going in, clicking around and changing the effect on your own. I'm now just going to mess with, I'm going to delete all that. I'm just going to mess with these other images here and just see. I've got this cool one with the sword that I thought would be cool with the dot map, and I brought in the bear again because I thought it would be cool to see the bear done with the new CRT modulation action, like with the crispy lines, just so we could see the difference if you wanted to like compare. I'm not going to talk through this time, I'm just going to run the action and we'll see how it looks. So I'm going to start with the bear. So click on advanced CRT bend, click play, choose my threshold. So I'm going to go for like 105. Do my Gaussian blur, so I'm going to do something really low for this one. Let's do like 13. Run my displacement, and then this is the default output. So I'm now going to run the crispy lines action, and I'm going to do something like this. The bear image is so cool, I can be a bit more risky, but I would maybe, with other images, I'd go for something like this. But yeah, I'm just going to see how this looks. So we've got like some more like dissolved detail kind of coming through here, like just some more noise coming through. for the bare image, but to be honest, the bare image doesn't look too different because I feel like the base image already has quite a bit of noise in it. If you look at it like this, there is already noise there. With the new action, the whole thing's so much quicker. Let me try a dot mapped bear. So I'm just waiting for it to generate. Okay, so the dot mapped bear's teeth look really cool, but I probably went a bit too far with the threshold, and I didn't really go far enough with the contrast at the beginning, so it's washed out some of the detail on the edges here, sort of around the cheeks. The last thing I'm going to try is just add in the effects to this image, like silhouetted image of someone holding a sword. So the first one I'm going to try is the CRT bend. Just going to click through these prompts and stuff, choose my threshold, load up my displacement map, and we've got like the cool silhouette appearing there. I'm going to try the crispy lines one on this one as well. If you can't tell, I really enjoy the crispy lines effect on this, on the modulation stuff. Yeah, see, so the crispy lines for this one just adds so much to it, just makes it so much less boring, like in these areas. By the way, if you wanted to get this, so like if I wanted the inverse of that, all you would do is just invert the image. Maybe I'll just do a little curves adjustment on it just to make sure that the silhouette is like the focal point, and then run the action on that. So just bear in mind, like what's happening when you run the action is the black parts of the image are basically not going to be taken into account by the displacement map as much. So try and have the parts that you want to be bendy, like circuit bendy, try and have those parts showing in white. So I'm just doing this one again, run my displacement again, and see there. So we've got now the main character of this sort of render is there with the sword, with the effect applied on her rather than on the background. And then to make these lines less boring, we're going to run crispy lines. Let's do something like that. And there we go, we've got much more interesting lines. Glow's probably a little bit too intense for this one, so you can always open the glow up and mess with that. In fact, there is an action called fine-tune glow, so if you wanted to run the fine-tune glow, it will let you do that if you run the fine-tune glow. Mine's going to work a bit weird now because I have two layers called CRT bend effect, so just bear that in mind. But yeah, those are the new effects. Again, I just want to say, like, massive thank you for all the support for the effect and the channel and the videos, and yeah, I really appreciate it. Even if you are not a fan of the new visual effects, like the crispy lines thing, this at least makes your life easier when you're running this action. So as I said at the start of the video, I'm doing one free resource every month. So if you like stuff like this, subscribe, share the video, like, all that stuff. It really helps. Other than that, thank you very much for watching. Hope this helped you out, and I'll see you in the next video.